with the opioid epidemic, we got to look at where it came from. And that came from Big Pharma, started with Purdue Pharmaceuticals and some others that purposely got veterans and other people hooked on opioids. They strategically planned it. But there's this firm, McKinsey, and they're a consulting firm, and they're the ones that worked for the pharmaceutical companies that drew up the plan on how to get veterans and other people hooked on opioids and on fentanyl. And right now, the state of California has a no-bid contract with this firm.
Hello and welcome again to another episode of Sacktown Talks. Today we're glad to be joined by Assemblymember Devin Mathis. Devin, how's it going? And thanks for joining us.
It's going good. It's good to be back on. Been a little while.
I know. It's good to see you again there from your home kitchen there in Porterville. Kind of how's it been back in the district these last few weeks?
Things are going good. There's different pieces, different things going on, meeting with people and looking at, what we're going to do next year and getting, I do annual policy pods in December where we get everybody together and kind of go, okay, what's going on and what can we actually do about it and have those conversations.
Yeah.
So right now, I think this week, everybody's just gearing up for Veterans Day.
Yeah. Big 3-day weekend. You got some good parades you're going to be in?
Yeah, no, so Porterville historically is the highest per capita MIA, KIA from the Vietnam War effort.
Interesting.
And we are home of the second largest Veterans Day parade this side of the Mississippi, second only to Fresno.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
So Veterans Day is a big deal out here. So
down in the valley. Kind of for our listeners who don't know, kind of what was your background before you got into the assembly?
Well, I joined Army National Guard when I was a senior in high school. Was at basic training during 9/11, Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and spent 10 years as Army sergeant, 2 deployments to Iraq, 03, 04 at the beginning. Did route reconnaissance, added security for convoys, and kind of operated around what's known as the Sunni Triangle, which is kind of the area around Baghdad out to Ramadi, Fallujah, up into Balad, into Crete, up into that area. So, and then went back 07, 08, got trained up on counterinsurgency tactics and things like that and helped train on that. But we ran long haul convoys, and I was a lead vehicle commander. So we'd have about 60 trucks, and I'd be the guy in front navigating through all of it, making sure we made the right turns, or if they blew a bridge or blocked a road, we knew where to go. And then trained other people how to do that as well. And was injured twice, came home, roadside bomb attacks south of Baghdad, but came home, went through the VA, went through a lot, and eventually kind of got it together, went to college, Porterville City, Fresno State, graduated Fresno State in 13, ran for office in 14.
Wow.
And here we are.
College degree fresh in hand, you thought you'd run for office. Kind of what was the kind of thought process there and the journey that led you to run?
I had got pulled. I was interested in getting into politics, right? I thought I'd be like a lobbyist for Military Order or Purple Heart or something like that. And was asked to help out on a campaign, did that for a little bit. And that campaign wasn't going anywhere. Got another job as a consultant and just kind of started looking back at who was running and kind of the lead guy. I didn't really like him. I thought he was kind of a knucklehead and was a little too cocky, and decided to run against him. And I took him out and been here ever since.
So were you involved in like kind of local city politics or, with the local Republican Party at all before you started running?
I was the young gun veterans guy. At Fresno State, I was president of the National Veterans Fraternity chapter there, and then made it up to the national board and was on the national board as national VP when I ran for office. So I had a big network in veterans in the San Joaquin Valley through VFW, AMVETS, American Legion, Military Order, Purple Heart. in the fraternity, and just kind of doing a lot of veterans work, charity work, helping veterans and their families out, navigate the system. And, when the opportunity kind of presented itself to run, it was like, well, if I'm not going to do it, I'm going to end up working for one of these guys my whole life. So let's throw our hat in and see what
That's
happens.
funny. So basically, your whole campaign was basically just pushed on your kind of work with veterans and kind of your kind of experience, right?
That was the original network. I think too often in politics we look at, how well are you plugged into a political party,
Right.
and we discount other networks. I mean, there's other networks and Rotaries and other social clubs and things like that I think politicians often forget about.
Yeah.
That are very strong networks. A network is a network, and if you know people and people like you and they're willing to pitch in and help and volunteer, you can get a lot of things done.
Yeah. So I guess going back to your enlistment, did you enlist like right after 9/11 or just about there?
No, dude, I was
You
already
were
in.
in? Okay.
I was at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, on a road march during basic training, and we were out kind of in the boons out there, and drill sergeant's walkie-talkie started squeaking, and we thought it was a drill. We thought they were messing with us.
Wow.
Because they take you out there, and you're out there in the
Right.
sticks, and they'd always like, oh, get down, do this, do these different things, and get you all worked up. But it was real, and so basic training it was about halfway through, and it got very real, and everything was all about you're not motivated, you're going to go to war, and you're going to die because you're not motivated. So it's pretty rough, but kind of got us mentally set up to prepare to go.
And then what year were you first in Iraq?
03.
03.
I got on the bus from my first duty station, National Guard, was Det 1 Alpha 297 in Visalia, California. And so we checked in on February 13th for our drill, right? And that's where everybody in the Guard, you show up once a month, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. And so we showed up, and one of the other company commanders from one of the sister units was there. And he's like, hey, we're getting on the bus tomorrow. You guys have orders. I'm your new commander, and we're going to Iraq. So went home, grabbed all my stuff, said goodbye to the family, and got on the bus on Valentine's Day at 03.
Wow. Kind of,
So
given all the instability in the region, kind of what are your thoughts on kind of the current events going on there right now?
it's that's a much longer conversation with everything I know, man. Like I said, I got for a lot of us, we got trained up on. There was a counterinsurgency course for non-commissioned officers, for sergeants to go through, and our command made sure that we went through it. And it kind of goes through the whole history all the way back to like the Ottoman Empire of the entire Middle East, the British involvement,
Right.
promises that were made, promises that were broken, a lot of different religious turmoil. Um, we can think of like Ireland, right? You think Catholics and Protestants and how they fight. And over there, it's the Sunnis and the Shiites. You have different Ba'ath parties, which are like mafia groups. So you can think of like how the cartels fight in Mexico, or how the mobs fight, in like Japan or Russia or other places. It's all similar type things, and it's all fights for power and control of resources.
Right.
You find out things like Saddam Hussein's uncle was a Nazi SF guy who raised Saddam, and he was over that whole region. So imagine what that guy's childhood was like. You find out, things like Bin Laden was a CIA operative and a Saudi prince who worked for the CIA, and ended up on the wrong side of the bushes and got pissed off and went and did what he did.
Mm.
There's just a lot of factors in there where the Western world didn't keep promises to people. So you see a lot of that, and then you see kind of the holy war side of it too, right? You've got people with Hamas and that side that saw the eclipse the other day that take that as a symbol for the next jihad. And they want to go, to them, it's death to the infidels. So if you don't believe the way they believe, you're an infidel and deserve to die. And they believe that to their core. And it's very foreign for people here in the U.S., right? Like here at home, we're worried about like homeless and, upset that people are going into convenience stores and, or shopping centers and just stealing stuff and walking out.
Right.
And over there, it's like, hey, you hit puberty. Here's an AK. Time to train. It's kind of going back and watching like 300, right, with Sparta. It's like, okay, you're of age. We're going to teach you for war. And that's how they live. That's the culture. And it's very foreign and it's very hard for people in the U.S. to grasp that.
No, definitely. Kind of a lot of things kind of veterans deal with kind of when they come back home is kind of PTSD, and often it leads to kind of substance issues. This last session you guys spent a lot of time on kind of the opioid crisis and fentanyl, things like that. Kind of what is the status of kind of trying to tackle the drugs and opioid crisis here in California, and kind of helping veterans kind of escape from these addictions?
Well, I think first and foremost, with the opioid epidemic, we got to look at where it came from. And that came from, frankly, big pharma. Started with Purdue, pharmaceuticals, and some others that purposely got veterans and other people hooked on opioids. They strategically planned it. And you can see that, like the Netflix series that came out. There's another series that just came out talking about fentanyl specifically. And the fact of it is, like, Purdue got sued. Purdue kind of went bankrupt and they're being taken to task. But what's disturbing to me, and I did a letter on it, asked other members, and had some bipartisan effort on it to the governor. But there's this firm, McKinsey, and they're a consulting firm, and they're the ones that worked for the pharmaceutical companies that drew up the plan on how to get veterans and other people hooked on opioids and on fentanyl. And right now, the state of California has a no-bid contract with this firm. And so what a no-bid contract means is it's not open for public record. So you could put in a public records request and they just laugh at it and go, well, that's not open for public record because it's a no-bid contract, so we don't have to show you what's in it. And I mean, so that's what's happening currently. So in the legislature, I mean, we can pass bills. We did a lot of work this year trying to really dial into fentanyl. And you can have a guy that's got a couple ounces of fentanyl, a couple grams, and it's, what do they say? Like just a tiny bit could kill like 100 people.
Right.
And so it's not the same as something else, And so the way our legal system is set up on drugs is it's all based on how many grams the person has. So a gram of heroin, a gram of cocaine, and a gram of fentanyl are all different amounts and have different levels of toxicity. Right. It's not the same thing, even though that's the way the law is currently written. And there was some attempts to address that. But I mean, as we saw with Reginald Jones Sawyer in the Public Safety Committee, there's a mentality there that they don't want to increase penalties on any crimes. And that's a problem. And so until that mentality from the supermajority changes, we're going to be doing these, it's creating a task force is great, but there's no teeth in it. It's one of those things. We know there's a problem. So getting a bunch of academics to sit around and study how bad the problem really is doesn't fix the problem. The problem is that people don't have a fear of repercussion. It's kind of one of those things like when you're a kid, it's like, hey, you're going to clean your room, you're going to do this, or you're going to get grounded.
Right.
Well, in today's society, it's you're not going to get grounded.
Yeah, it's a risk reward, right? Like, if there's no risk, little risk, right, and the reward's big, then what's the downside?
Well, there's that, and then the flip side of that too is you hear a lot about recidivism rates, and they're like, "Oh, we lowered recidivism." Well, they decriminalized what the crime was. So if stealing used to be a crime that you could get arrested and go to jail for, but now it's been changed and you no longer go to jail for it, it doesn't mean people stop stealing. It just means people aren't going to jail for stealing.
Right. So,
So, and that's I talked the other day on another show, and we got deep into the difference between morals and ethics. And ethics are based on what is legal, right? So if it's legal, therefore it's ethical. Well, if you can change the law, you can change society's ethics. Doesn't mean it's morally right.
right.
But with opioids, man, opioids, fentanyl, I'll tell you, and I kind of broke down during suicide awareness presentation this year and talked about my own story. Because when I got home, I was messed up pretty bad. I mean, I'd been blown up twice. I came home to a pretty rough family situation, basically nothing but my car. Accounts were in the red, and it was kind of like, God, why did you let me live through getting blown up to come home to this? And the VA didn't really make it any better. I've got degenerative disc disease down my spine. So anybody that sees me get up after sitting down for a little while and I move kind of slow like an old man, there's reasons to it. But I've got pinched nerves all throughout my body because of it. I had a traumatic brain injury. You get PTSD from these things, and spend a lot of time doing cognitive retraining therapy, a lot of time with counseling, a lot of time with different things, kind of relearning how to live, relearning who I was, relearning how to deal with stressful situations. And I mean, we all deal with it, right? We all struggle. Sometimes things piss you off, and you blow up, and you're like, okay, how do I calm down? How do I have techniques to deal with that? But physically, I was 25 years old, man, and
Wow.
the VA handed me a bag of pills, a cocktail of, here, take this to go to sleep, take this to wake up, take this for the pain, take this for this. And they had me on one of the highest doses of opioids they could give. And I'm not a little guy, I'm a big
Right.
dude. And it's, you take this stuff and it's like, oh, yeah, well, a counselor will reach out to you in the next 3 months. Well, what do you do for the next 3 months? You're at home, you're depressed, you're taking uppers and downers and painkillers, and you start self-medicating. And that's why we have veterans committing suicide, because they get us hooked on these things. We struggle with these things. And I woke up one morning and looked around, and it was, I had attempted. And it was the mix of opioids and alcohol and being in a really bad place. And for me, it's just, I'm just really thankful my family is the type of family they are. They kind of scooped me up and forced me to get help. And that's, I mean, dude, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my family, if it wasn't for God, if it wasn't for, what's gone on. And there's times in life where it's like, okay, like you were asking, like, hey, what'd you do before the assembly? How'd you get here? What is your path in
Hmm.
life? And I mean, dude, I've literally been through hell. And when I look at, what's happening with fentanyl, what's happening with opioids, what's happening with our veterans. I mean, veterans, the data is some of these studies show over 60% more likely to get addicted because we're a target, because they've designed these things to target us.
Right.
And it's tough. I mean, dude, when we were, and we used to joke about these things when you're on active duty and you're out road marching and you're out training, you sit there and you joke about how ibuprofen is ranger candy. And you carry them around in your pocket. And when it starts to hurt, you pop a couple in your mouth and you chew them up and you swallow them, and you're a tough guy because you usually mix it with some chocolate covered espresso beans. I mean, that's what everybody did because you just had to get through it. You see these movies and you see these guys and they're all hardcore. That's why.
Wow.
I mean, you're carrying. I mean, think about it, dude. You're carrying 80 pounds of gear on you constantly. You got the body armor on, you've got the rucksack on, and everywhere you go, you're on your feet and you're marching day in and day out, getting 4 hours of sleep.
That's amazing. And you came back at 25 and you had all those issues. Wow.
So
That's something. Kind of
it's
a lot of this is kind of like federal based. What can the state do to kind of help veterans more?
well, it starts by not having a contract with the people responsible.
Mhm.
I mean, why we're going to give millions of dollars to the people that got people hooked, who drew out the plan?
Right.
Think about that, dude. Like on the reporting side, you couldn't even call them to task. We're not allowed to see what's in that contract. So, I mean, I'm going to have some talks about looking at doing away with no bid contracts.
Yeah, kind
You
of
know,
what is the purpose of not having the transparency and the openness, and I guess the state getting the best deal possible of these no bid contracts?
well, are they getting the best deal possible, or are they getting
We don't know, right? That's kind of the whole point.
right? Is it how if it's a no bid contract, how is it the best deal possible?
Right.
Because to me, that sounds like you're getting your buddy helped you out with a campaign or something, and now you're giving them a contract.
No, exactly. Kind of, a lot of the problems we've talked about is, homelessness, opioids, kind of a lot of the stuff goes kind of hand in hand, right? And, there's a lot of homeless veterans out there. Kind of what more can be done and kind of in your mind can the state do to kind of help these veterans kind of navigate this path?
It's part of it is actually having the programs work properly. One of the things that frankly has pissed me off over the years is, and really got me involved in politics, is when I was first navigating the system, it's like, well, how come there's not a program for this, right? Or how come there's not a program for that? And then you do the research and you find out there is a program, but the program's just not being ran right. The people that are, at the social worker level doing signing people up for programs haven't been trained and don't know about the program, but it's there, it's on the books. Um, Here's an example of this on water. I worked on a grant and loan program for people's wells that go dry or go bad,
Hmm.
right? Toxic taps. We hear about that, especially during the droughts. Well, there's a program that'll fix your well, but the state runs the program like garbage and doesn't put any money into it. So the program exists. There's a program there that'll help you, Jarrett, but
No funding.
there's no fun. But we see headlines all the time, right? It's and me, I call them headline horse. Guys go and chase headlines and do a bill and say, oh, we spent more money on homeless than anybody else ever
Hmm.
has. Well, that's great. But where's the money going? Is the money actually going into the program down to the people that need it? Or is the money being spent by the administration so all the administrators got a pay raise? Where's the money really going?
Right.
And so when you look at these things, I really think as a legislative body, we need to spend less time chasing headlines and doing the big bold print of we spent more money. and really look at the mechanics of the program. Is the program running right? Because too often, too, is look at a program and it's like every 2-3 years, well, this program's not working, so let's do a new one. Right? We've seen this. And the problem isn't the program, they don't give the program a chance to get off the ground. I mean, think about it. If we start a new program, it's going to take us a year to at least get it off the ground, because we're going to have to hire.
Right. If you're lucky. Yeah.
That's going to take 6 months. And then we need to train the people that we hired, right? Because on the job training is kind of a joke, right? Like, you actually need to spend some time to teach people, here's what the program's supposed to do. Here's how it's supposed to work. Here's the different pieces. Here's who's eligible. Here's who's not. Here's how to help them out. Here's kind of the in-between spaces. So now a whole year's gone by, and then you start getting people into the program. Well, it's a new program, so people are like, well, I don't know about this, right? So then 2 years goes by. You have another election cycle. New people come in. There's a shift, and they're like, well, that program's not working. Well, the program hasn't had a chance to work. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, we're going to do a new program, then we're going to spend even more money. And it's like all the money we spent on hiring people and training people and everything else just went out the window.
Right.
And so I've seen, dude, in 10 years, I've seen that happen multiple times.
That's what is kind of flooring me right now. It just seems like you got here just a couple of years ago, but you're almost done.
I was just talking to Connie Conway this morning, and we were kind of laughing how I'm the youngest old guy in politics. Well, no, dude, I came in, I was the...
What were you, 30 when you got elected, or what?
I think I was 32 when I swore in.
Wow.
And I'm 41. So it's, I was the first millennial combat veteran with a Purple Heart elected to state office in the country.
Amazing. And kind of, so everyone always said like, oh, 12 years will be enough time for people to kind of stay on top of these things. These 12-year members can kind of get a groove and really stay on top of the programs, kind of like what you were just talking about. Kind of in actuality, you know, how is that coming? You know, the 12 years, is it enough time? Can you guys really focus on something and get something done?
Well, I mean, dude, I've gotten a lot done. I mean, I got a decade. You know, you pulled my website, and it's like, you know, bills that we authored or joint authored or, you know, you worked on. Because I learned early on, one of the tricks of being a super mega minority member is I got to find Democrats that I can be cool with that'll help me get things done. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of bills where I walked up to them and I go, hey, here's this idea. Here's what I see. Here's the mechanics of it. Let's put your name on it, because I need a Democrat name on it, but I'll have my team do all the work. And I've done a lot of that. But I think 10 years is a lot of time. I mean, a decade at it is quite a bit. I think there's a lot of stuff that I've learned now where, you know, if I was to turn around and go to the outside, I'd feel almost more confident in getting something done, because then you're not beholden to the seat. You can kind of work from the outside, but you gotta learn the process from the inside first before you would go to the outside and use that, you know, like from a consulting perspective or something like that.
Right.
But it's really it's legislators don't understand the mechanics. And then we have political consultants that are constantly honest about, oh, you need to get a good headline. Right? Because if you get a headline in the newspaper, that headline then turns around and gets put onto a mailer or, you know, whatever propaganda we use in the campaign. You know, here's a picture. You know, it's, you know, we can sit there and say, you know, Jarrett did the most talk shows ever, right, and put it in the mail and put it on social media and you know, make a big deal about it. And everybody's like, oh yeah, we really like this guy because look, he's telling us he did all this big stuff. Mm-hmm. But we need to spend more time mechanically on what's going on. I mean, my bachelor's is in public administration, and I took, you know, public health law and legislation courses, I took a bunch of different things to really look at how these policies work, how they're supposed to work, how they're supposed to function. Took the grant writing stuff to look at, okay, a grant's given, but how do they report back? How do you show they actually did what they said they were going to do? Making sure things are responsible and appropriate through the entire time. And we don't do enough of that. When I got elected, we can run 40 bills. Now it's 50 bills. And we don't spend time running committee bills and calling people in and saying, hey, we just ran this program. Give us an update on how it's going. We do a little bit of it in the budget subcommittees, because they're asking for more money for their programs or to keep their money going. But on the policy side, we're not calling them to task and saying, hey, we said to run a program this way. You're doing it this way. Why? What's going on? Let's get back to this. But what we see is the answer is just more money. You ever had a buddy that had a car that was a lemon? Right? It's like, oh, I got this great car, dude. And I just got to spend this money. I'm going to spend $2,000 and get this done on it.
Yeah. Throwing good money after bad is what they call it.
Yeah. You put more money into it. And so what I see with these programs is it's like we keep buying these cars that are worthless. It's like, well, the last one didn't work. And, don't worry. We got a new model. We got a new car. It's going to be better than the last one. Or, you go and you get it and car sits in the driveway because it won't run.
Right.
So it's worthless. And that's kind of like these government programs that we've had. And there's got to be some accountability, and accountability within the different agencies. And we see every now and then you'll see a director get rolled, right? Like this director's gone, a new director will come in. But it's deeper than the director level. I mean, look at the way, and not to, go after, state employee unions too much, but the fact of it is there's zero repercussion for their workload.
Yeah.
If they do 10 cases versus 50 cases, they get paid the same. There's no incentive for increased success. So if you're working there, you're going to get paid no matter what.
Yeah, it's hard to get rid of you. So if you're
you
not
can't,
working,
if you're doing, but you also get this culture and this mentality of, well, if you work harder, it used to be if you work harder and better than everybody else, that was a good thing. But you get into these cultures where if you're working harder and better than everybody else is mad at you because you're making them look bad.
Yep.
And that's where we're at. That is, in today's society, that is where we're at. And so it's a problem. It's a systemic problem. And, we need unions. I mean, I hope we get the staff union and Republican employees can get paid the same as the Democrat employees. I'm sure my staff would love that. But there has to be an incentive to do more and to do better. And we need to stop telling the public just because there's more money, it's a better program. I mean, dude, if you look at the budget numbers, I was just talking to Vince Fong yesterday, our budget vice chair, and we are on this crash course projection for a major recession in California this next year. I mean, we are way over budget. And think about all the new programs that just got signed into law by the governor. Where's the money for that going to come from? So you got to kind of go back to what are the fundamentals? Do we care about keeping veterans off the street and keeping a promise we made to our veterans? Yes or no? Are veterans more important than I remember a year we were trying to get some stuff for water done, and we didn't get the money for the water in the budget, but LA got $3 million for a dog park. And I'm like, how in the hell is a dog park more important than people having water?
Right. Unbelievable. Kind of.
So this, I mean, but dude, this is the state we live in. You know, it's what's the old saying? Socialism's great until you run out of other people's money. You know, and we're legit out of other people's money.
Yeah, we're about to find out.
And but what you hear about under the dome is, well, we need to increase taxes. Everybody's, we need to increase taxes. You know, or you'll hear, well, the economy's bad, inflation's high, let's increase minimum wage. Well, when you increase minimum wage, you compound inflation massively because you have the cost to produce electricity goes up. We've all seen that. And then the cost to produce water goes up because, you know, you need electricity to make water. You need water for electricity. So these guys have to pay their employees more. They have to pay their employees more. Then you have fuel cost, gasoline, diesel, freight, goods movement, all of that goes up because you need all of that to make fuel. Plus their employees have to get paid more. Then you have raw materials that go up, right? So they have to pay this cost and this cost and this cost plus their employees' cost. And then after that, then you have production cost. That ties in there. And then for production, then you got to go to retail, and then you go to your house. Every step of the way, and that cost, each one of those steps gets passed on to you.
Right.
And then you throw retail theft in there, and those companies, they increase the cost of those commodities because they have to pay for the insurance and everything else for the losses. So the guy out there in society that's doing the right thing ends up paying more. And the guy that's not isn't paying anything.
No, exactly.
And that's what we live in. So I mean, it goes back to the political party in power has the ability to legislate and change the law. And if it's legal, therefore it's ethical. But it doesn't make it moral.
No.
And here we are, back to the opioids and the fentanyl. We have a governor with another no-bid contract. He's got a backdoor deal with the people that are responsible for the fentanyl crisis. Think about that. I think that's the biggest thing. And we sent a letter to him, everything, nothing back. Doesn't care. And it's, you know, for me, dude, I mean, you go back and you look at the Jerry Brown days. I worked with Jerry Brown on tons and tons of things. We built schools. We fixed, you know, worked on the cap and trade program. We worked on water. We got a lot of stuff done. So when a governor is willing to work across the aisle and work on things and actually look at the mechanics of things, you're able to get a lot done. When a governor thinks he's too good for everything and is going to do a backdoor deal with his buddies and there's no repercussion. I mean, I guess there's a little bit of repercussion, right? Berkeley just came out and their study showed his approval ratings dropped below 50%.
Yeah.
And that's got to be pretty harsh when it's Berkeley. It's not like it was a Fresno State poll; it was a Berkeley poll. But I mean, that's the society we live in, man. You know, when the governor does everything by emergency order and executive orders, right? Look at what's happening with insurance in the state of California. You know, you got people that are pulling out. Well, they're not going to do any new housing policies or vehicle policies or anything else. But yet you're required by law to have insurance, and now there's not going to be any providers unless they figure it out. You know, and I joked last year around Christmas, I think it was right after Christmas, because Newsom's office made a big deal about doing that. And emergency order so Santa can land his reindeer and bring Christmas presents. And it's like, how jacked up are you if you don't know Santa's coming and you need to sign an emergency order?
That's funny.
But it's like, what are we teaching our kids? It's we go from one emergency to the next emergency to the next emergency, and we don't stop and look at what are we actually doing?
Yeah, why do we have all these emergencies all the time?
Why do we have all these emergencies? Why do the programs not work? One, you got to give it time to work, right? Like there's, let's talk about, I mean, just drugs, and I know we're going to run out of time because I got to run, but we have the care court, right? Care court's a big deal. Care court's supposed to help people get cleaned up from drugs, help with homeless, do all this stuff. Well, there used to be this thing called drug court. And drug court had a little bit of teeth in it because it was like, here's the deal. You got in trouble for being on drugs. You're either going to go to jail and get clean, or you're going to go to a rehab program and get clean. And then you're going to come back to the judge and you're going to report back how's that going. And in the meantime, we're going to get you resources to help you get you on your feet, to help you get programs, to help you with continuing education, to help you out. So when you get cleaned up, you'll actually have some kind of a job, some kind of a plan on what you're going to do with your life. And the program was very successful. But Prop 47 and 57 and the laws that we've passed have taken the teeth out of it. So now we're going back and it's like, oh, well, we're going to call it care court. It's the same thing, but there's no teeth.
Right.
So if you're an addict and we say, hey, we'll help you get clean, we'll give you all this stuff, but just, are you really going to do it? You're going to go get as many freebies as you can, and you're going to go keep using because there's no repercussion.
Mm-hmm.
There's no accountability and responsibility.
And it's interesting. I was talking to some first responders about the homeless crisis and where these homeless are coming from. And they told me point blank that other states are sending their people here because they know that they'll be taken care of, and there's no teeth to it.
Well, it gets, but I mean, it's so much bigger than that, right? I mean, look at the border. Look at the millions of people crossing the border.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality of it is the U.S. truly a sovereign country if we don't have a border? I mean, it's there. There's a line, but if there's no security, is it sovereign? And those people come in, and because we're a sanctuary state, when there's sanctuary cities, it's like, yeah, I think we're a country of immigrants. I mean, part of my family was sold during the Irish slave trade, escaped out of poverty and indentured servitude to the plains, married into some of the native tribes, became Dust Bowl Okies, and made it to California. Yeah, that's my mom's side. But it's, if we're going to have a civilized society where we're addressing the problems that are plaguing us, there has to be accountability and responsibility all the way around. And we have to hold our citizens accountable. And we have to have a responsible government that actually governs, that's not cutting backdoor deals with their buddies. I mean, what's the difference between a drug cartel selling drugs and a company that drew up a plan to sell legal drugs to get everybody hooked, who has a backdoor deal signed with the governor that we're not allowed to see? I think the public deserves to know. I think we deserve transparency. And the reality of it is our state's not going to get fixed. Our country's not going to get fixed until both political parties are transparent and accountable, and until the bureaucracies right? This isn't just the politicians, right? We always hear drain the swamp and these kind of things, right? It's the real swamp is the bureaucrats. And until the people that can't get fired have to be accountable and responsible and make sure their programs are actually helping people, it's going to continue, man.
Yeah.
We're going to continue to have drug addiction, drug overdoses. We're going to continue to have, cartels are bringing stuff in. We've seen it in my district. Um, we've got to get law enforcement the tools that they need to be able to do their jobs. But at the same time, if there's no accountability for the criminal, law enforcement can do everything they can, but you can't hold them. So they're right back out.
Right.
And they think it's a joke. And it emboldens them. I mean, think about it. If you're a criminal and you know you can't go to jail and you keep doing this bad behavior and you're going to make money and you're going to profit off of it, that's good business for you.
Yeah.
So is our current government in California helping the people? Or are we helping the people that are preying upon our society?
No, well said. Well, Devin, I know you got to get going, but thank you so much for joining us, and look forward to kind of seeing you this session, kind of get that transparency and get us some answers, hopefully.
Yeah, no, let's get together January, February, and sit down in studio.
Okay,
Man.
sounds good, man. Well, happy Veterans Day, and we look forward to talking to you some more, digging into this
All right,
deeper.
take care.
Thanks, man.